Today we worked on comparing rational numbers, and first of all you need to understand what rational numbers are. Rational numbers, the book defined it as any number created by dividing two integers, and to be more specific, that includes our whole numbers, so 0, and all of our positive counting numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of those to infinity, and it also includes their opposites, so the rest of the integers are negative numbers. It also includes our fractions, any fraction possible, positive or negative. It includes terminating decimals, so a decimal that stops or ends. It includes repeating decimals, so a decimal that has a pattern that continues on forever, like 0.2222222, that goes on forever. Those are all included in our rational numbers. What's not included is a decimal that goes on forever without a pattern. Then we worked on comparing rational numbers, and in the first example it's really easy to compare because they have a common denominator. And what that means for a common denominator, a denominator is the number on the bottom, and notice they are the same number, so that means they are common denominators. Anytime you have common denominators, you only have to look at the numerator to compare. So -4 and -1. Well, we know -4 is less than -1. And that kind of seems confusing because you would look at the 4 and think, well, that's bigger. But these are negative numbers, you have to remember. So these are closer to the positive. That means it's going to be larger. The next one, we can't compare them right away just by looking at the numerators because they don't have common denominators. And since these are mixed numbers, where they have a whole number and a fraction, I think it's easiest first to change them into an improper fraction. So you work your way around, bottom number times the whole number plus the top number. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7, and you keep that denominator. Again, denominator times the whole number plus the numerator. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 5, we get 13. And you keep the 8 on the bottom. Okay? Now we have to find a common denominator. The easiest way to do that is to list out all of the factors. And if you still have your multiplication chart, you can use that to help you, or I'm sorry, not factors, all the multiples. You can use that for all your 4s, all your 8s. But you can see this one, we're not going to have to make a very long list. 4, 8, 12, 16 for 8s, we have 8, 16, 24, and you should see we already have one that's in common. We want the smallest number that's in common, which is 8, and so we have to change these so that both of the numbers have an 8 on the bottom. This one already has an 8, so we don't need to change it at all. This one, to make the 4 and 8, it's 1, 2, the second multiple, so we multiply by 2. Whatever you do to the bottom of the fraction, you do to the top. And so this fraction would actually end up becoming 7 times 2 is 14, 4 times 2 is 8. So when we're comparing these two, now that they have a common denominator, again, you just have to look at the numerator. Well, we know 14 is greater than 13. So that would be a greater than symbol to compare those. In the last example, we are comparing them by ordering our numbers from least to greatest. And we have different types of numbers. We have a decimal, we have a mixed number, we have a percent. And the easiest way to do this when you have multiple types of numbers is to change all of them into decimals. Well, this one's already there, so we don't need to work with that. The percent's the easiest to change. You move it 2 spots over to the left, and in this one, you'd actually end up having to add a 0 in. And in the middle one, The easiest way to do this, if you know what that is as a decimal, you can just write it. Otherwise, it's going to be 7 point something. And let's do our 49 divided by 50. And 50 goes into 49. It doesn't. So we're going to have to count. Okay, 50 goes into 490 how many times? Well, we have 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, 450. So it goes in 9 times, which is 450. So subtract down 40, 0, we're going to do 400. Well, we know, or I'm sorry, that was a 0. So it would be 40, and then we'd bring down that 0. Good. Okay, well, if 9 times is 450, 8 times would be 400. So we have 0.98. But remember, it's a 7, so it would really be 7.98. And so when we go to do these from least to greatest, when we look through, we have 7.49, 7.98, and 0.075. So the smallest one would be our percent. So we'd have 7.5% as our smallest. Then this would be our next smallest. And then this one last. And notice I'm writing them in the original form, back as the fraction, decimal, and percent that they were. And that's what you would need to do to solve that type of problem.